Have you ever wondered if the Golden Boot, awarded to the World Cup's top scorer, is actually made of gold, or is it a lie? We'll discover the incredible hidden process. Is actually made of gold, or is it a lie? We'll discover the incredible hidden process. There's something few people mention. It's not just a decorative trophy. In private auctions, its value can exceed $50,000. But the real question is it worth so much? Because of the gold, the prestige, or the history it represents? The 2026 World Cup will be unique.
It will be the first with 48 teams, and the first organized by 3 countries:
the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Therefore, this edition's Golden Boot will have special historical significance.
After conquering a major international tournament, can he compete again for the most sought-after individual award?
Others think he shouldn't be in a major global tournament anymore. But what if he ends up being the top scorer?
This athlete arrives as one of the big favorites. Many believe this is the tournament where he must prove he is already the absolute leader of world football.
Can a teenager become the top scorer of the biggest global tournament in history? Comment below who you think will win it.
Can a teenager become the top scorer of the biggest global tournament in history? Comment below who you think will win it.
And when it happens, the winner's name is forever linked to that trophy. But very few people ask a fundamental question. How exactly is it made? What process transforms a design into the award that is precisely what we are going to discover in this video. Phase 2, the material you can't buy in any store. Here begins a part almost no one knows. Many believe the Golden Boot is simply a football boot covered in gold. But that is completely false. FIFA defines the design and standards, but mainly European, with decades of experience creating high-level trophies. The process begins with metal alloys,
designed to be resistant, durable, and capable of reproducing every detail with precision.
One of the most surprising facts is that the Golden Boot is not coated with pure 24-karat gold. Pure gold is too soft to withstand the test of time. That's why a high-purity alloy is applied over a much more resistant metal base. How much gold does it contain exactly? FIFA has never revealed that figure. And that mystery only increases the symbolic value of the trophy. Here arises an interesting discussion. And that mystery only increases the symbolic value of the trophy. Here arises an interesting discussion. Others believe that an award for the top scorer of the planet's most popular sport must be made with exceptional materials. What we do know is that once all materials are selected and verified,
artisanal work, and extremely rigorous quality controls. And that's where the actual manufacturing of the
Phase 3, design and modeling. The manufacturing of the Golden Boot begins long before working with metals. It all starts with the design of the trophy, a process where every detail must be perfect. The first step is to create the master model, the definitive version that will serve as a reference for all future pieces. To achieve this, designers use 3D modeling CAD software, tools capable of defining with a precision down to hundredths of a millimeter. At this stage, the trophy does not yet physically exist.
It is only a digital model composed of thousands of data and coordinates. However, any error here would be reflected in all subsequent stages.
So every detail is carefully reviewed. Once the design is approved, the transition to the real world begins. So every detail is carefully reviewed. Once the design is approved, the transition to the real world begins. Through high-resolution 3D resin printing, thanks to advanced technologies, the digital model becomes an extremely precise physical replica, smooth surfaces, and correct small imperfections that can only be appreciated by observing the real object.
This process combines modern technology with traditional sculpting techniques that remain indispensable.
It is the original piece from which all subsequent trophies will emerge. That's why its precision is fundamental. Any defect, no matter how small, would be reflected in every Golden Boot manufactured. Phase 4, mold creation and first casting. With the master model finished, the creation of the mold and the first casting of the metal. Designing the mold is much more complex than it seems. It must allow the molten metal to flow correctly, for air to escape during filling, and for the piece to be For trophies of this category, high-temperature silicone molds reinforced with a rigid casing are used. Silicone is capable of capturing even the smallest details of the master model, including almost invisible textures, that will later contribute to the final finish. Mold manufacturing is done slowly and in layers to avoid air bubbles. Once completed, the mold is carefully separated from the master model, leaving a cavity that precisely reproduces every detail of the future trophy. Before using the final materials, a test casting is performed using working alloys, normally tin-based. This stage allows for the detection of hidden problems, such as poorly filled areas, internal stresses, or surface imperfections. If the test piece meets the standards, the process continues. If defects appear, the mold is corrected or even remade from scratch. There are no shortcuts in this phase, because the quality of the mold will directly determine the quality of each golden boot produced. Phase 5. Base metal casting and roughing work. With the mold using the definitive materials that will form its permanent structure, the metal alloy used must meet very strict requirements, be resistant, stable over the years, and compatible with subsequent finishing treatments, especially the gold plating. The metal is melted in crucibles at high temperatures until it reaches a completely liquid state. At this stage, cleanliness is fundamental, as any impurity can ruin the piece. The filling speed must be exact. If it's too fast, bubbles can appear. If it's too slow, its surface is rough, presents burrs, joint marks, and remnants of the channels where the metal entered. Specialized artisans carefully remove every excess, using files, cutting tools, and precision polishers. It still doesn't have shine or a golden color, but the structure, proportions, and all main details are already fully defined. Phase 6, polishing, finishing, and preparation for plating. The roughened metal piece now enters that will transform its surface from rough and opaque to perfectly smooth and prepared to receive the final coating. This phase is, in many senses, the most extensive and the one that requires the most. Progressive polishing begins with relatively coarse abrasives and proceeds in an orderly and systematic manner. This seemingly simple principle is fundamental in finishing metal pieces. Using only fine abrasives, the work would be endless and the result would be uneven. Each abrasive grade removes scratches left by the previous grade, replacing them with finer scratches,
until the achieved level of fineness is such that the surface reflects light uniformly and consistently.
In the detailed areas of the trophy, where mechanical tools cannot reach with the necessary precision, artisans use abrasive pastes applied with cloths, wooden sticks, and even their own fingers. This manual work in detailed areas can take many hours per piece. Once polishing has reached the required finish level, the piece undergoes an exhaustive visual inspection. It is examined under different lighting conditions, including grazing light.
That reveals imperfections not visible under direct illumination. Any area that does not meet the required standard returns to the polishing process before proceeding.
To achieve this, it undergoes several special baths that eliminate greases, oils, oxides, rinses with demineralized water, and chemical activation treatments are also used
to prevent any contact from leaving residues that could compromise the final finish.
Phase 7, gold plating, final assembly, and quality control. The gold,
also known as electrodeposition. The basic principle involves immersing the piece in a solution and passing an electric current through it. This current causes gold ions to deposit uniformly over the entire surface of the piece, forming a layer of metallic gold adhered to the base substrate. The electroplating solution is a precise chemical mixture. The gold concentration, the solution's pH, the temperature, the electric current density, and the immersion time are variables that are controlled with precision instrumentation throughout the process. Each of these variables affects the result differently.
The gold concentration determines the deposition rate. Temperature affects the uniformity and mechanical properties of the coating,
and current density controls the thickness of the deposited layer. The coating thickness is one of the most important parameters. A layer that is too thin will not uniformly cover the surface and will leave areas where the base metal will show through the coating.
An excessively thick layer can present internal stresses that cause flaking. For
and verified using non-destructive techniques once the process is complete. The immersion time in the bath
depending on the required coating thickness. Throughout that time, the piece is suspended in the solution with electrical connections
over the entire surface of the piece, preventing the formation of depletion zones where the coating would be thinner. After leaving the gold bath, the piece is immediately rinsed with demineralized water to remove any chemical residue that could affect the coating. It is then dried in a controlled manner and undergoes an inspection where the color, shine, and technicians pay special attention to the most complex areas of the design, where achieving perfect coverage results more difficult. If any irregularity is detected, that area can be retreated before proceeding.
Evidence. In many cases, the different parts of the trophy are manufactured separately and joined at this stage.
The base where the winner's nameplate will be placed is also installed. That engraving represents the final manufacturing step. It is the moment when the trophy ceases to be a generic piece and acquires a unique identity. Weight, finish, assembly, and legibility of the engraving. The trophy is photographed from various angles.
And only when it passes all verifications is it carefully to travel to the stadium.
Listened. To the top scorer of the 2026 World Cup.
Now I'll read you below. Until next time.
The user prompt explicitly states, audio